Welcome to Damon Does the 6 questions, where the same 6 questions can tell a unique story. I am your host, Damon, father of 2, husband of 1, and leader of this here Demodcast. My next guests, yes, a Damon Does first, a 6 questions first. 1 is an avid reader of fantasy, sci-fi, and mysteries. 1 is a polyglot that writes in her journals backwards. And 1 has more than 45 tattoos. And together, they podcast. Give it up for Lillie, Jenna, and Jillian. Blerd on the street.
I feel like some jazzy intro music should be playing.
Right.
Walking down the street.
Thank you for taking time out to talk to a perfect stranger. How y'all doing?
Good. Pretty good.
We're doing good, yeah.
And where would you all like to be found on the internet?
I'll go first. I am Jenna. I'm mostly on Instagram at PhillyGirlJL. That's PhillyGirljL. And I also am getting started on TikTok, but that's PhillyGirlJLH. So it's the same thing, just an H on the end.
Hi, I am Lillie. Formerly, you could find me at Twitter a lot under Elise on Life. I still have that name, but I'm not really on Twitter that much because it is a sinkhole from hell right now. I do have Elise on Life also at Blue Sky. It is what it is. I'm not super happy with Blue Sky, but they're trying. So yeah, I end up spending most of my time on Instagram as Lillie PHL, which is Lillie PHL. But it's just a bunch of pictures of all of my fiber art stuff that I do. Has really nothing to do with our podcast whatsoever. You can also kind of see me around Twitch. I have been streaming with a bunch of different places like Singularity Roleplay and Girls Run These Worlds. I play a lot of TTRPGs. And right now I'm in a Monster of the Week campaign that is, it's ongoing, but we're on a couple weeks hiatus right now.
Okay, so I am Jillian. I'm mostly on Instagram, but it's mostly pictures of my cat. So not too much podcasting. You can find me at jillian.corinne. That's Corinne with 2 N's, not 2 R's. I remember that being a thing with my parents and my birth certificate. So just to clarify, it's 2 N's and not 2 R's. You can also find me on TikTok at the same name, but I haven't been posting there as much, but I'm thinking about starting up again. But if you're looking for all 3 of us and anything to do with the podcast, you can find us at Blerd on the Street on Instagram. And then, if you want to listen to the podcast, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcatcher of your choice.
Question number 1. When did you know you wanted to get into podcasting? I guess we'll go Jenna, then Jillian, then Lillie.
I don't actually remember a specific time when I wanted to get into podcasting. I personally have been listening to podcasts for years. I probably got started maybe right before COVID. And then obviously with COVID, I was home a lot and couldn't do much else. So I was listening to a lot of different podcasts at that point.
I mean, you've been listening to podcasts since 2016.
All right. Well, I don't really remember. Time is Time is weird.
But
It's
before disease time.
I know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember before COVID and after COVID. It's fine. It's all just like a blur. But
It simultaneously feels like 6 months and 20 years.
yes,
Mhm.
it does. Exactly. Anyway, at some point I was just like, oh, this sounds like fun. I want to do a podcast. I have a lot to say, even though, like, at the time, I didn't actually like the sound of my own voice, which is a weird thing to say. And I guess I saw Jillian had just randomly posted. We were friends beforehand, but I had saw Jillian posted randomly about, hey, I'd like to start a podcast. And I was like, oh, me too. Let's go.
Nice.
Piggybacking off of that, I was, into listening to podcasts since I think probably 2016, about the same time. Just, as entertainment, I always liked listening to audiobooks, so listening to podcasts was like a natural progression. I like radio plays and that sort of thing. And then I was like, well, there's not really that many like Blerd women podcasters or podcasts. And so I was like, oh, look, there's a space I can fill. I have something to say. And then I was like, on my Instagram stories one day, like, should I start a podcast to my friends? And I was like, they're the ones who will be listening initially, won't they? So, and then, as Jenna was like, oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, so, I mean, here we are. How many years did we started in 2021, I believe?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like 3 years later, here we are.
Yeah, I came at podcasting from a totally different angle. I've been into TTRPGs for a while. That's tabletop role-playing games. Of course, the most famous one being Dungeons and Dragons, but there's a lot. And there's like a lot of different systems. So if you are into it, I urge you to try out as many different ones as you like, because there's a whole world out there besides Dungeons and Dragons. But there was a local store in our area that was like a comic book store, but they also had like space for people to come and play games if they wanted to play TTRPGs if they wanted to. And they hosted Adventurers League, Dungeons and Dragons Adventurers League every week. And then one time a person that was involved in the Adventurers League was kind of like, I really want to like sponsor like a podcast that would be all like women and femmes and playing games. And I was like, yep, sign me up. I'm in. Here I am. So that's what one of my other podcasts that I didn't mention in the intro, Misfits of Space, is actually where I started podcasting, like being part of podcasts. That was years ago. I do not even remember. That might have been like 2017 or 2018. Previous to that, I was into audiobooks, but also audio dramas, like listening to audio dramas and actual plays, which is basically like listening to people play the games that I was also playing. So yeah, that's how I became interested in both sides of the podcasting, the listening, and the being part of.
Question number 2. What do you wish you had known when you had started out?
I think that what I wish I had known, and I guess what I still wish, is that I wish it was a little bit easier to pull in new viewers using social media, but I feel like the algorithms for Instagram and even Facebook and everything, they're not very helpful for people of color for anything. And I am grateful that we have been able to sort of get like a core audience of other people of color, podcasters and beyond. But yeah, I think I wish I knew that from the beginning, hard it would be to kind of to do like self-marketing and how much it would take to do self-marketing.
Yeah, I agree. I also would say not everything has to be absolutely perfect. It's your baby, essentially. You want to put out the best that you can, but like sometimes you just gotta get it out. Speak your piece, say your thing, post the clips, and just like, as you do it, you're gonna get better.
I think I would say that probably going to come off kind of mean, but I feel like white guys can like start a podcast and have like 10,000 viewers in like 2 weeks and like whatever, and a lot of them, I don't think they really worry about the actual cost, like to having a podcast, the microphones and the cameras, the audio equipment, recording, subscriptions, like all of that kind of stuff, like is not as much of a problem, but it's a real investment. I think that it shouldn't have that much of a roadblock. Like I really hate the idea of like, well, if you don't have the money, then you should just choose something else. No, I think the bar for people being able to do things like this, especially media, like media all around, right? The bar should be lower in terms of the financial investment and the tools that you need in order to do it should, I think, be more available without having to come out of your pocket so much.
I agree, but I like how we're like in community with several other Black creators. We're sharing resources, sharing knowledge. So that has been something very good to come out of this,
Right.
Reach out to your community is also another thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Question number 3. What's your go-to order at your favorite hometown restaurant?
Okay. So I'm gonna be real simple here because if I go anywhere that has steak, then I'm gonna order that. I don't know, like that's just my go-to. If we're talking about like if I'm going to a special place, then I love Asian foods, and one of my favorite foods is onigiri, so I would order that if we're like in any place that I would trust that has Asian food, but otherwise steak is kind of my go-to.
Nice.
What is onigiri?
It's technically a rice ball, that's what they call it, but it looks like a little triangle, and it has what's it called wrapped around it?
Seaweed.
Yeah, seaweed
Right.
wrapped around it.
It's like
So-
rice and seaweed.
Seaweed, and then whatever you
filling.
get. Yeah, whatever you
Yeah,
get.
you
from-
like do one side of the triangle, you put in your stuffing, you put the other side of the triangle, you can there's forms that you can
Yeah.
I was gonna say
you
there's
can
a
like
shape.
sticky rice, form it
Yeah.
all together, and then you put a little like a thin wrap of sushi, not sushi roll,
Seaweed.
Seaweed.
sushi roll.
Seaweed.
I mean, yeah, seaweed.
So they're like dried seaweed strips. Like,
Yeah.
you put
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, the nice crunchy ones.
Yeah.
And you eat that, and it's like such a good. I used to have that every day after work.
Yeah.
Like a little
Really?
good.
onigiri / bubble tea place.
Yeah.
I was walking home, so I would get that all the time.
Yeah. Bubble tea is also one of my, like, if we're talking drinks, that would be one of my favorite drinks as well. So, like, kind of all goes together.
Okay, so there's this really good Sri Lankan style kitchen in my neighborhood, but they make a Sri Lankan fried chicken sandwich that has just the right spices, not your 11 spices and herbs from KFC. They're way more flavorful and potent, and I don't know, just sauce, pickles, and a bun and some fries, and it's so good. So I get that.
Everybody fries chicken.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's how you fry the chicken.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
actually, that is
Mhm.
true. I don't know if I have like a specific go-to like place, but yeah, that's a little bit hard for me. Where do I go? Like, do I even? I guess the real thing is that I have to think back to like before 2020 because I have not really been like out to restaurants
Okay.
um, that much in the past 4 years.
So do you cook a lot?
No.
Like, what's your go-to dish? Like, what do you like? What's your comfort food, or
Okay.
you know what I mean? Like, just what you know? Because I've had people who don't go out and they talk about their favorite dish that they cook for their family. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like your favorite. What's your favorite meal?
It's not like a meal food. It is actually a dessert. And it is called, I call it a berry crumble, but it is this modified, I do not cook with measurements. So so I'm just like, oh, well, like I just put like this much flour and whatever, but I don't know, it half a cup, whatever. But it is a modified biscuit mix that I use as the bottom crust, and then lots of mixed berries, and frozen mixed berries actually work better than fresh fruit for this because it's a slow cook. They cook slowly, but fresh blueberries actually don't cook very well in my opinion because they burst and then they're just juice.
Mm.
But yeah, so frozen mixed berries for me are like blueberries, raspberries, black raspberries, strawberries, like that kind of thing. And then I tear up like the rest of the half, like I cut the dough in half, and the one half is the bottom crust, and then just tear up the rest of the other half and just like throw it on in pieces on the top, and it like cooks in little pieces, and
Ooh.
that is my mixed berry crumble that I love cooking it, and I love cooking it for other people.
Ooh, so I should host a dinner party soon. And you should bring that.
Actually, I mean, we've been talking about high tea, and that would be
Oh,
really good.
I mean,
okay.
it would, yes. But
Mm-hmm.
also, at some point, I was part of this Jane Austen book club,
Mm-hmm.
and every year we had like a potluck dinner, except you were supposed to bring stuff that was from Jane Austen's time. And one time I made a syllabub, which
Oh,
is
those look
it's
complicated.
it is kind of hard to explain. It's way easy. Well, the ingredients are way simpler than I
Okay.
expected, but yeah, it's sort of like a half drink, half yogurt, half custard. Like it's really hard to explain what it is, and kind of frothy.
Lily, in the notes we prepared, it says you're a polyglot, which I mentioned earlier. How many languages do you speak?
Conversationally, I can totally understand French and Spanish. I really funny about speaking them in front of native speakers though. So I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna sound terrible. I I taught myself some Korean, like that's like an ongoing I'm learning. But the Korean alphabet is super simple and was actually created that way by one of their kings as a way to like I love the story behind stuff too. Also, as a way to break away from Chinese imperialism. So
Mm-hmm.
they would have their own language because before they used Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And then right now I'm sort of I'm duolingoing Danish.
Nice.
You say sort of. Is it really hard?
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if anybody here knows like Finnish and German. It's like Finnish and
Hmm.
German mixed together,
I
kind of.
used to take German in high school. Yeah.
There are times when I've been watching like Swedish TV shows,
Hmm.
and I've been like, that's the same word in Danish.
You forgot to mention American Sign Language.
Oh yes, and ASL.
That is so cool. Jenna, you make clay?
I make mostly earrings with the clay, and then I do beaded like bracelets and other things like
Key rings.
keychains, things like that.
How did you get started in that?
Good question.
Boredom.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure that was another COVID craft that I started. I follow a lot of craft people just in general because crafting is a thing for me on Instagram. And I guess during COVID, I was watching people, make their own jewelry and things like that. And I was like, oh, I could do that. That looks really cool. And you think you're going to save money doing it, which I probably didn't, but just the enjoyment of like doing the craft is why I still do it, and instead of just buying it from someone else, which I still do. I buy stuff from other crafters anyway because you got to support the community. But yeah, it just kind of came about, I think, during COVID, and I really liked it. So the beaded jewelry that I do is a little different from like traditional beaded jewelry, but I'm indigenous, and so making traditional beaded jewelry is just kind of something that we learn growing up. And I didn't have as much of a connection with that because I'm an urban Indian, one, and two, we don't live near our reservation. It's in Connecticut, so it's not kind of close. And even though we do go visit it several times a year, it's not the same thing as like actually living right there. But like the traditional beaded jewelry, I just don't really have the dexterity for it. So it's like really, really beautiful and I love it, but it just couldn't be my thing. But I still wanted to be able to do crafting. So that's kind of how it came about.
Jillian, how big is this cabinet that's dedicated to your tea?
Oh man, so it's in between my oven and my snack cabinet, and it's two doors. I want to say it's like 3 feet across and maybe like 1 foot deep, but also like there's like 4 shelves in there. I don't know how tall it is. But one shelf is just the cups and the saucers and the teapots. And then the next shelf is tea, bagged tea, and coffee. And then the next shelf is all my jars of, or my tins of loose tea. But on that shelf, I have a separator. So it's like 2 shelves on one because the tins are so small and then they get lost. So I need to be able to like shuffle them around easier to get to them. I have a lot of tea. I'm always looking for good tea. I actually found this really good tea shop in Fairfax, Virginia called Seven Tea House. So if you're over there, you gotta go. It's so good. Like there was a family who has been in business, they said, for like 13 generations. Like, okay, so they told us that before we drank the tea. So it was like, obviously these people know what they're doing. So I've just been like buying their whole catalog every couple of months, trying different ones from them, and I've got a few favorites now. So I'm just like just drinking that like all day, every day. And I'm a big fan of matcha, and they make matcha, and it's so good, so good. My dream is to go to Japan and like go to the Uji region, and they have like a couple of places where I've looked this up where you can mill your own matcha and then drink it and do a matcha tasting. I'm like, that's the dream vacation. yeah, my tea cabinet is very big. So if you come over, you're coming for tea.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Right. It's very busy.
Question number 4. What are you curious about?
I am curious about history. It's actually been a thing forever. I probably would have majored in it at college, except that I didn't want to teach, and there's not much else you can do with it besides be a lifelong student otherwise. So, and I didn't want to do that either. So, I like cultural history. So, like, not just American history, but, or so called American history, but like just learning about the history of different cultures, how they started. I kind of have a little bit of Lily's interest in languages as well. I'm not great at learning them like she is, but just knowing like where they came from, how they started, things like that. And also I'm just curious about like how people interact with each other throughout history, like how it's changed the world and the global interaction and that kind of thing.
I would say I actually did go to school for art history. I didn't want to teach, but I wanted to work like at museums or galleries, some kind of like marketing or educational role there. That did not end up happening because of the economic downturn right around when I graduated grad school. But I've always been interested in how people use art to kind of filter their view of the world and like what's going on at the time, what's important, historically, what's been important to show, and then what's not being shown. Because, at the museums, you see all these like major works by these, household names like Picasso, Leonardo da Vinci, but, they're not the only people who were painting. But it's like interesting to see like how like what was I don't know if I want to say acceptable, but like accepted by the mainstream versus when you do find these kind of lesser main or non-mainstream artists, these lesser known artists, what was their focus? A painting's not a picture, but at the same time, if you're talking about art photography, like what are they choosing to take a photo of? It's all about like what are people depicting at any point in time based on their lived experience. And I think that's also kind of ties into what we do or what we consume as Blerds, like what media we consume, because, comic books could, reflect the time that we're in, but other, regular textbooks reflect what's happening in the day. And like, you can even see like like, if you're on like Book Talk or whatever on TikTok, what are people interested in discussing that is being put out in the world. So I always find that kind of thing fascinating.
Yeah, I am I feel like all of our answers are sort of a branch off the same tree, but I am interested in languages, but not just like languages as in speaking them or learning them as a simple way of communication, but languages as in like also like linguistics and learning like the root of languages and how different countries came to borrow words from other places that don't seem like they would necessarily have been like close enough culturally to have those words, and also like words that languages have according to where they are. Like I remember that year that it was Year of the Ram in the Chinese zodiac, there was like this whole thing where people were saying like, oh, it's sheep, oh, it's ram, oh, it's, whatever. And it was the fact that Chinese only had a single word for like a horned like animal like that. So they didn't really differentiate the way we do, the way we say like, oh, this is this and this is that and this is that and that is that. And they're like, no, it's a horned animal. We just had that one word for it. Jenna mentioned that we are indigenous, and our indigenous language, Pequot, also has like a word for squash, but it's also the same word that you would use for pumpkin, because for us, a pumpkin and a squash, like they're gourds and they're all the same, right? Like we don't need to have separate words for these things because we can describe them in a different way, right? Like it would be like maybe you would use the word orange beforehand if you were talking about a pumpkin, or you would use the word long if you were talking about like what's the yellow squash or whatever, But I really like learning about how languages sort of develop like that. And then also how like English borrows like a lot of stuff in different ways, but then some of the English words end up being like, oh, that's a bougie word. And it's like, okay. Like in Danish, I love this word. In Danish, the word for enemy is fiend. And I'm like, fiend, I love that. I love that that's the word for enemy. That's how you said. Like, it's spelled differently, but that's how you pronounce it. I'm like, that's an awesome word for an enemy. I'm gonna go around all the time saying, you're my fiend.
You should be starting beef for no reason. It'll be.
I love that kind of stuff. And I really think that languages that are based syllabically with words that get pushed together, like German, people are like, oh, that's like a Franken word. But like there's actually a lot of languages where they'll be like, oh, well, we'll just add this suffix in the front, or we'll add this prefix in the front and this suffix in the back. And then if you add an et, then that's the article, like the word the. Like they don't have to have a separate word for the. It's just, this little extra letter that gets added on somewhere.
Question number 5. What should I ask you that I didn't know enough to ask?
I think someone else is going to have to go first because that's a good one. I don't have a ready answer.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because what do you even think? Like, talk to you about yourself.
I mean, I would maybe say like a really simple question, right? Like, what book are you reading right now? What TV show are you watching?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's true. That covers a lot of ground.
Right.
Because we're all about the book and
Oh, yeah.
TV and movie recommendations.
You know what? Let's go. Let's call the audible. And what are you all reading?
So I am re-listening to on audiobook. Well, this is the first time I've listened to it on audiobook, but I've read the print book before. Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is the second book in I think the series is called the Locked Tomb series. The first one was Gideon the Ninth, which was an amazing story. It was amazing. And then I re-listened to that audiobook as well. I've read Gideon the Ninth 4 times already. And it's just, I don't know, there was just something about it where I was like, oh my God, I love this story. So that's my audiobook. I often have like 3 or 4 books on the go because I'll usually have like 1 or 2 print books and 1 or 2 audiobooks. But the print book that I'm reading right now is called Floating Hotel. I don't know the author. Wait a minute, I have the book right here. Grace, Grace Curtis is the author. It's a fantasy, kind of like a, what's the word? Space opera-ish. They're on like a huge, like luxury hotel that goes around. It's basically a cruise ship, but in space, I guess is the way to say it. And each chapter is from the point of view of a different person that's there, like either a guest or the manager or the maid or something like that. And they're all kind of telling their stories about how they got here while they go through. There's an overarching thing that's happening. I don't know if it's really a mystery, but there's like you feel when I'm reading it, I'm like, something is coming. Something is what's going on here? So I like that. It's a little bit different than something I would read, because even though it's fantasy, it was like shelved in the literary fiction section when I was at the library, which I often do not read highbrow lit fic, because a lot of it is genre fiction, but it's just like the author doesn't want to be like genre fiction is below them. So we're like lit fic.
I had a conversation with somebody about that the other day. I'm like, why is everything like, oh, it was because we were talking about like classic novels versus, what's popular now. And a lot of the classic novels, because we were talking about Mr. Rochester and how he's actually trash, but he's like considered this like great romantic hero.
He's trash.
He's so trash. Oh my God.
If you haven't read the book,
The dude is like it.
He locks his wife in
He's an abductor.
the attic because he like doesn't understand her.
No, he locks her in the attic because she has a mental illness and she is. No,
right, he doesn't understand her.
But I'm saying,
like,
Jillian, there's deeper to it.
I know,
she has
I know,
a mental illness, and also she's
try.
half Jamaican or something like that.
Right.
Like,
he also didn't try to get her help. He's like, well, we're just gonna hide you away so no one has to like deal with you.
Right.
I can't. And then I was telling this person, one of my friends, I was telling her about Wuthering Heights getting a remake. Like, no, why all these stupid, awful books where everybody's terrible? Like, those are like the two worst characters I've ever read. Like, they're awful. And yet there's all these movies about these two. And now they're getting a modern remake with two sexy Hollywood actors. And I'm just like, they're not the romantic heroes that everyone thinks. I'm like, I'd rather do something like original, please, God, please.
But it's like how everybody thinks that Romeo and Juliet is a love story.
They're
and it's
the
like,
worst.
no, it's literally called a tragedy. Like Shakespeare called it a tragedy.
Oh my God, yeah. Everyone's all excited because there's a bunch of I think it's on the West End and on not Hollywood, Broadway. They have Romeo and Juliet in London and New York right now, and they're sell out shows because of the actors, but also it's one of those blockbuster shows. It's like why we have the Nutcracker every year in ballet performances, to get butts and seats and money in pockets, and it's just but there's so many other stories to tell. Right. Don't get me started, even though I already started. Anyway, I'm reading The Marlowe Murder Club, which is a book by an author who actually writes and I believe created one of my favorite shows called Death in Paradise. And there's going to be, I didn't realize that there was going to be a TV adaptation of Marlowe Murder Club coming out this Sunday, so I'm trying to finish the book before the show drops on Sunday.
Wait, is this on BritBox?
No, it's on PBS.
Oh, PBS.
Yeah.
PBS has a lot of new stuff out this
They
season.
do. I
Yeah.
just finished Moonflower Murders, which is another
Oh, I
book.
That
loved
was
it.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Such a
I
good book.
haven't finished it yet, but I love the Magpie Murder, so I'm
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Right, that's a
Also
sequel.
written by another author, British author who he writes for TV all the time. So of course like his book is like perfect for the TV adaptation because he's also the head writer. So it's like what more do you want?
I have a book that I'm reading now. It's called Compound Fracture. I actually just started it because you caught me right now, like I'm kind of in between books. I just started. It's called Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. I'm literally in like page 5, so I don't really have any thoughts on it yet, but I'm reading it because the author wrote another book called The Spirit Bears Its Teeth, which I absolutely loved, like 5 stars, everything, all that jazz. So I'm hoping that this is just as good. They're all standalone, so this Compound Fracture doesn't have anything to do with The Spirit Bears Its Teeth, but since I love the writing of this author, I've got high hopes for it. Also, since we're talking about Lily was talking about audiobooks. I'm not actually listening to any audiobooks right now, but I'm a big podcast person. I told you that obviously we're doing our thing here. So I kind of wanted to mention this podcast I'm listening to because it's really interesting. It's called Candyman, the true story behind the bathroom mirror murder, which if you are any kind of a horror person, you know the movie Candyman. It's about this serial killer who, if you say his name I think it's 3 times, like maybe like Beetlejuice, 3 times while looking in your mirror, then he comes out and kills you. But the movie itself kind of, I would say loosely based on, but there's like fact behind the fiction, and there was actually this murder. It was in Chicago. It's in the projects, and this woman got murdered, and the person or people who killed her came in through her bathroom mirror in her bathroom. There's a whole thing like explanation about how they actually did it, but basically there was this flaw kind of in how they designed the apartments in this projects, and so people could actually go. There was like a little, like, they called it a pipe chase, I think. It was supposed to be so that plumbers could access the apartments easily if they needed to fix something without actually having to go into the apartment. But people were using it to be able to break into apartments because all they had to do was take off the bathroom mirror vanity, and there was a hole that they could crawl through to get into the apartment. Yeah, guys.
Wow.
Like coming out of your bathroom mirror is like some X-Files thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And apparently it was well known, and the Chicago Housing Authority did nothing. And of course, they covered their ass and said that, oh, there weren't that many reports. But the cops also had said that, there were reports and whatever. So it was a thing, but it,
stopped because you guys weren't doing anything.
right. Well, first of all, the cops said they didn't respond to reports because there were a lot of hoax reports that came out of the project.
Sure.
But let's just say it like it is. They were white cops and these are black people. So, like,
They weren't as concerned.
it was Chicago.
It's Chicago.
It was Chicago.
Yes.
So,
What year
and
was it? Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't.
it was like 80s, 70s,
Oh, even
like
more.
that. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely in a time when.
Yeah.
Wasn't Chicago also where the House of Horrors was?
Yes.
Possibly, yeah.
H.
H. Holmes.
H.H. Holmes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That story is amazing.
He built like a bunch of secret passageways in his hotel too.
Right.
Yeah.
And like torture rooms.
Yeah.
In the walls.
So they actually, like, I've also listened to a podcast about that too. And like, there have been some debunking about all of the stories that came out of that. But that's not to say that he wasn't a serial killer. He was probably, and some of it could have been true, but it wasn't quite maybe so House of Horror as people wanted to believe.
I mean,
But
people went into the hotel and then disappeared. Like that's true, right?
I think it was more like how many people were
Okay.
disappearing.
Okay, yeah, that makes
Okay.
sense.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I have a weird follow up for this. True crime is the number one genre of podcasts consumed by women. Why do you think that is?
Because we're often the victims.
Yep.
I would also argue that it's about storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about who a lot of books are marketed towards, a lot of books are marketed towards women. And I think a lot of, like, the way that these, like, documentaries and other things, like, there's, like, an element of, like, really good storytelling. At least that's how I see it. I like a story, beginning, middle, and end. Very satisfying, especially if you have, like, I guess I would be weird to say anxiety, I know, because it has to deal with murder and crime, but it's like going back to, I hate to say this because it's going to sound weird, but it's like going back to your comfort show, like you kind of know what's going to happen. But like when you're watching a documentary, like you kind of know what's going to happen. You might not know how it happens, but you know there's going to be a problem at the beginning. There's going to be a story in the middle about how they get to the end result. So I think that, like, that aspect of storytelling is also a great driver of why these are so popular, because I don't necessarily think it's like morbid curiosity, but more of like kind of listening to these stories and then, you know, learning from them and knowing what to watch out for. Because, you know, I've listened to another podcast about gossip, and those are essentially stories of people getting together to, you know, just talk about what's going on. And a lot of times people would say, you know, gossip is bad, gossip is a sin, but it was really kind of just controlling narratives and, you know, who's getting to hear things and get all the information. So I think that is also good. Well, like Lillie and Jenna said, you know, we're usually the victim. So it's also kind of like knowledge sharing, like how does this not happen to me? Like what do I look out for? That sort of thing. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation, but I think it's like, in a sense, like this is how, you know, women talk at like the very basic stereotype women talk. And we're always sharing information about, you know, who to look out for, who to avoid, who to is a good person. Like, you know, even with the Me Too movement, we weren't talking, and now, you know, we are. I'm sorry if I'm not making a lot of sense, but that's kind of how I see it.
No, it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
I kind of amalgamation of both what Lillie and Jillian said. I listen to a lot of true crime because women are often the victims. And as a Black woman, as an Indigenous woman, our stories are not really getting told.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if I'm just listening to it and there's nothing I can do, like, you know, I'm not going to be able to like call in and be like, hey, I know who killed this person or whatever. Like a lot of the stories aren't like that. And a lot of them do have like an ending, whether it's satisfying or not. But just listening to a story that's centered around the victim as opposed to centered around the killer, because there's so many podcasts out there. We all know, you know, John Wayne Gacy. We know
Yeah.
the names of all the serial killers, Son of Sam, whatever. But can anyone here actually name the victims? Like, probably not.
Oftentimes, I'm sorry to cut you off, but oftentimes just talking about that too is you go online and you search the victim's name because you want to learn more, and immediately, this is because this has happened to me. Immediately, just their killer comes up,
Right.
and it's never about the person. It's about the person who took their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of it for me is just hearing the stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I curate my true crime podcast to be where they're centering the victim as opposed to the killer itself.
Like
So
sensationalistic.
Right.
Exactly.
I don't understand people who say they have a favorite serial killer. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like serial killer boyfriends. Like I'm
No.
like
No.
No.
I don't know. I think I would disagree with what you said about. I don't think books really are like. I think romance books are marketed toward women, but I think overall, like fiction in general, is mostly marketed toward men, and I think a lot of that is shown also in book covers. Like you can tell that they're not marketing this book cover to a woman. I think true crime, women and femmes are often the victims, but I think we're also often the ones who crack the stories and are the most dogged in investigating the stories to come to an actual closure. I wouldn't say there's always like, oh, you find out what happened to this person, but there's some sort of closure, there's some sort of relief to the families. And I think that women specifically are looking for that when they decide to pick up these true crime cases. There's a show on Hulu called Sasha Reed and the Midnight Club, I think, that I think really illustrates that point. It's just like it's a bunch of women. Sasha Reed like brought together a bunch of women. So she's a white woman, and I think she specifically was like very deliberate in bringing together a group of mostly women of color. And even the cameras, I don't know how much control she had over this because, like Hulu is Hulu, but even like the cameras and when you hear like them talking about solving cases, like she's not necessarily always the face on camera, right? Like the other women in her group do a lot of the investigating. They get a lot of camera time and get to talk a lot about why a case is important to them and why they want to be part of solving it. I'll Be Gone in the Night is another instance, I think, of a woman being like really, really dogged and like really going out there. She involved a lot of people in the true crime community. She reached out to a lot of people. She did so much research and like, I'm gonna say this like on a hot mic, on a mic, like I don't think police solve crime. I think that true crime has grown so much because there are a lot of people who also realize that the people who care about it are often the families of the victims or the missing and other people who are usually women who come in and say, let me help you with this. I have these resources and I will help you. And I don't think that necessarily always comes when there are men involved.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and shut the fuck up, I guess. Question number 6. If you could create a new holiday, what would it commemorate?
Okay, so I'm going to take this. Every year, we get our friends together and we have what's called Blerd's Giving, where we just throw out our hot takes for the year. And I would like that to be a real holiday and just commemorating the Blerds and the community that we have and also, trading barbs across the table like it's Thanksgiving or traditional Thanksgiving.
That sounds like an absolute blast. So, would it be on Thanksgiving or would it be like the week before?
It would have to be Black Friday. Like, let's be real. Or taking it back.
I'm not sure if I would create a new holiday. I love the summer. I'm going to put that out there. I love the summer because I love the heat. I like being able to be outside and it's sunny and it's nice. But my favorite time of year probably is autumn. I like living in a place where we get autumn colors. The trees are changing and like there's this kind of switch over between what's growing and what's not and things going into hibernation. I don't know. It's just something about it that I really like. And I'm also a Halloween person, so like I feel like Halloween should be celebrated year round, but that's just me. That's just me. I don't know if I would say creating a new holiday, but just having something that's secular but still celebrates autumn and the changing of the seasons and all that kind of stuff.
I would also not um, create a new holiday, but I will get all of the religious people on an uproar because I think honestly we should celebrate the solstice. Like we should celebrate midsummer, and I think we should celebrate the winter solstice, the longest night as well. Like the longest day is midsummer, and then the longest night in the it's sometimes called Maban, I think Maban, the longest night. I think that should be like holidays. We should celebrate that. The Nordic people celebrate them like their holidays, and I think we should do that too.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly I think that we should have something like similar, like I was saying autumn and you're saying the solstice. I feel like the winter is a very hard time for me personally. And I know there's a lot of people out there who have seasonal affective disorder like I do. And I just feel like there should be something, like I said, that's secular. It's not religion based, that everybody can come together and celebrate, that will break up sort of the monotony of winter and make it easier to get through. Like those getting dark at 4:30 at night, and it's a hard time. And I think we need something in there.
And stop having daylight savings.
Yeah,
Oh
that
man,
too.
that's coming up too. Oh,
No.
That too.
Lord. Anyway, sorry. We're all jumped on that. Oh, crap. That's in like 2 weeks.
Right.
Any parting words, ladies, for our listeners?
No,
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and talk up my other two podcasts besides
Okay.
Blerd on the Street that I'm part of.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so one of them is Misfits of Space, which is an actual play podcast, meaning we play TTRPG and you get to hear us being these characters. Right now we're playing Scum and Villainy, which is
Ooh, I love that
yeah,
one.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yes.
The podcast originally started off using the Star Wars FFG system, and Scum and Villainy is quite similar in tone, right? Because that's what it is. But it's based on Forged in the Dark instead of the
Oh,
FFG
Forged in the
system.
Dark is great too.
Yes, they're awesome. And then my other one is called Greetings from Stability, which is a horror anthology podcast. It's all set in this town called Stability, Oregon, but we play different indie games with different, like we're all different characters at different ages and eras of the existence of this town. So we did one that was called Sleepaway, which is pretty cool. It sounds innocuous. Like there's like it's very horror. There's like a monster that is stalking you through the whole game. And just like other cool indie stuff that so we can, give some attention to smaller games and game systems.
I'm going to talk up something that all three of us are actually involved in called Geek Girl Brunch. I'm one of the Philadelphia chapter officers, so I help organize it every month. But basically, it is a monthly brunch or bi-monthly sometimes, depending on what chapter you're involved in. But it's a brunch that we have where it's geek girls that get to come together, and most of the brunches, they have a theme every month. So you can dress up if you choose to, or just kind of wrap whatever you like from that theme. And we are international, so we have chapters all over. You can go to geekgirlbrunch.com to find out where your local chapter is and get involved. We're always looking for new members every chapter. If you don't see a chapter on the list, you can contact us at HQ and see about starting your own chapter. Got a lot of information that we can disseminate to start your own chapter if you're really interested in that. So, come join us. And
I would also include that Geek Girl Brunch is trans and non-binary inclusive.
Right. Yeah, we do say geek girl because we're femme centered, but we are very inclusive and accept trans and non-binary. We also, the other thing I'm going to wrap, and Lillie didn't mention this, but she is a fiber artist. Like I've told you, I do my clay jewelry. We kind of have a joint business. You can find all our information on our Instagrams and our social medias that we mentioned at the top of the episode. So come check us out.
I don't have anything personally I'd like to talk up, but I really enjoyed being on this podcast with you, and I hope whenever we schedule it, you'll be available for Blerd's Giving.
I hope I am too. Thank you for the invite, for sure. Again, thank you once again for joining us, whether it's your first time or this time for the 6 questions. If you like the show, tell the world. Please jump on your podcast app and leave a 5-star review and tell your friends. That's the best way to grow the show, and more can join the conversation. And until next time, see it, hear it, speak it,